All right. So you guys sent in this this audio documentary about Idi Amin of Uganda and Mobutu Sese Seko.
Yeah.
Two of, well, really the classic examples of African dictators.
Yeah, really embody this.
And we're going to go deep on those.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack their rise to power, their reigns of terror, and the lasting impact they had on their nations.
Yeah, this is
Be prepared for some truly shocking stuff.
wild one.
We're talking accusations of cannibalism, bizarre Scottish alliances, and economic collapses of epic proportions.
Yeah. To understand these men, I think you kind of have to rewind a little bit to post-World War II Africa and kind of picture this continent that is shaking off centuries of colonial rule.
Yeah.
It was a period of immense change.
Right.
And unfortunately, the perfect breeding ground for figures like Amin and Mobutu.
It really feels like a powder keg.
It was.
Just waiting to explode.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, the 1941 Atlantic Charter, signed by the Allies, it kind of planted the seeds for this.
Yeah.
It promised greater autonomy to colonies after the war.
Right.
Combine that with, you know, European powers kind of weakened by the war.
Yeah.
And they're struggling to hold on to these empires.
Right.
And you've got this recipe for rapid decolonization.
So once those first couple dominoes fall, the rest of them start.
It's like a dam breaking.
Pretty quickly, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
In 1945, most of Africa is under European control.
Right.
Fast forward to the 1960s.
Yeah.
It is this whirlwind of independence declarations.
Right.
You've got, you know, Morocco and Tunisia breaking free from France in 56.
Yeah.
You've got this massive wave in 1960.
Yeah.
Cameroon, Senegal, Togo, Mali, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's this rapid fire succession.
It's amazing how quickly that map changes color.
Yeah.
But, you know, getting independence is just the first hurdle for these countries, right?
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
You know, they're faced with this monumental task.
Yeah.
Of, you know, how do we forge a national identity from all of these diverse ethnicities and religions?
Yeah.
How do we, you know, establish functioning governments basically from scratch?
Yeah.
And how do we deal with this power vacuum left by the colonial powers?
Yeah.
It was a massive undertaking.
Right.
And it's, you know, not surprising that figures like Amin and Mobutu exploited that instability for their own gain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I think these stories become so fascinating.
Absolutely.
And terrifying at the same time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's start with Idi Amin.
Okay.
This guy is like the textbook definition of a dictator with a very dark past.
He really is. It's interesting, though, how his rise to power is, you know, in part facilitated by the very people who will later condemn him. I'm talking about the British.
Okay.
You know, he honed his military skills in the King's African Rifles.
Yeah.
He proved himself to be a capable soldier.
Yeah.
You know.
So they essentially trained the man who would become...
Trained the dictator,
this notorious dictator.
It's such a stark example of the complexities of the post-colonial period.
Yeah.
But I think his early life really offers these glimpses into the brutality that he'd become known for.
Okay.
There's this, you know, chilling incident where he commanded his platoon to massacre villagers.
A massacre? Wow, that's horrifying.
It's brutal.
And he just got away with that.
He did.
Oh.
Sir Frederick Crawford,
yeah,
who was a colonial governor at the time, he was more concerned with avoiding scandal before Uganda's independence than he was with justice.
So they basically swept it under the rug.
It was this tragic display of, you know, turning a blind eye to violence in the name of political expediency.
That's a chilling reminder of how easy it is for people to just ignore these things when it's convenient, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Uganda gets independence, and then what happens?
Well, then you have the entrance of Milton Obote, Uganda's first prime minister.
Okay.
And his relationship with Amin is, you know, it's complicated. It's this tangled web of ambition and betrayal that really played a key role in Uganda's descent into chaos.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, it sounds like.
You know, the political climate in Uganda at this time, it's basically this battleground between people who want a central state and those who want a decentralized state.
Right.
Obote was initially a champion of democracy.
Okay.
But increasingly, he started becoming more authoritarian, which, reflects this broader trend across a lot of newly independent African nations. And remember, this is the Cold War.
Yeah.
So you have these superpowers vying for influence.
Right.
And they're often willing to back some pretty unsavory characters, as long as it aligns with their ideology.
So it's just kind of this recipe for corruption and power grabs, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, Amin is right in the thick of it.
Okay.
He's playing a key role in Obote's shady dealings.
Yeah.
Particularly this smuggling ring with gold and ivory.
Right.
And this is where he really learns the art of power consolidation.
Okay.
Through complicity, through, exploiting the system for personal gain.
Like he's getting an apprenticeship.
He is.
In dictatorship from Obote himself.
Exactly.
Wow.
But, this alliance would sour.
Okay.
And lead to one of the most dramatic turning points in Uganda's history.
Okay.
Amin's coup.
So he's learning the ropes of power and corruption. And then at some point, he decides, okay, it's my turn.
Well, Obote starts to suspect that Amin's getting a little too powerful.
Okay.
And starts sidelining him.
Yeah.
But Amin, ever the cunning strategist, is already planning his move.
Okay.
While Obote is at this Commonwealth meeting in Singapore in January of 1971.
Yeah.
Amin sees his chance.
Wow, this is like a political thriller or something.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's this, swift and calculated takeover.
Yeah.
He seizes control of Kampala, broadcasts the news before Obote can even react.
Right.
And initially, he presents himself as a savior.
Right.
A restorer of the Constitution.
I'm here to save the nation.
Exactly.
And there's just full dictator.
Well, yeah, those promises of democracy were quickly forgotten.
Right.
He transforms Uganda into a military dictatorship.
Yeah.
He's ruthlessly eliminating anyone who stands in his way.
So how does the international community react to this?
It's surprising because initially they welcomed him.
Really?
Yeah. Both Britain and Israel saw him as a potential ally.
They're okay with this guy who's already shown he's willing to be brutal.
Geopolitics often trumped ethics during the Cold War.
Yeah, I guess so.
Britain saw him as a counter to Obote's perceived socialist leanings.
Okay.
And Israel, was looking for a strategic foothold in the region.
Okay.
And saw potential in his anti-Arab stance.
So as long as he's on their side, they're willing to look the other way.
As he aligned with their strategic interests, they were willing to kind of overlook the darker aspects of his past.
Okay.
He further fuels this optimism by presenting himself as this unifying figure.
Right.
A reconciler of Uganda's diverse ethnic groups.
Yeah.
He goes on these state visits to Britain and Israel. He even has lunch with the Queen.
Lunch with the Queen. That's amazing.
It is.
He was playing the game, wasn't he?
He was.
Wow.
He even, revisits Scotland.
Right.
Where he had trained with the British Army.
Yeah.
And he harbors this strange fascination with all things Scottish.
Right.
He goes so far as to dress a Ugandan army regiment in kilts.
Kilts. Come on.
It is.
That's hilarious.
It's bizarre.
But but while he's charming world leaders, things back in Uganda are taking a much darker turn.
They are.
Right.
While he's enjoying the international spotlight.
Yeah.
His true colors are beginning to show at home.
Yeah.
You have this American journalist, Nicholas Stroh.
Okay.
And this sociology lecturer, Robert Seidel.
Yeah.
They disappear.
Oh.
While investigating, early killings under his regime.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
This can't be good.
It's not.
Yeah.
They're later found murdered at an army barracks.
Yeah.
It's this chilling sign of the brutality that's brewing beneath this carefully crafted facade.
So the honeymoon's over now, right?
The honeymoon is definitely over.
Yeah.
The murders of Stroh and Seidel are this real wake-up call for the West.
Right.
It's this stark realization that their supposed ally is not who they thought he was.
It's amazing how dictators can manipulate perceptions for so long.
They play a dangerous game.
Yeah.
And in Amin's case, the mask is about to slip even further when Britain and Israel deny him additional arms.
Yeah.
He turns to a new and even more dangerous partner.
Okay.
Colonel Muammar al-Gaddafi of Libya.
Oh, Gaddafi.
That's a whole other
A whole other
level of dictator, right?
This was a strategic move for Amin.
Yeah.
Gaddafi, having expelled much of the Italian community from Libya,
right,
seized control of Western military bases there.
Implemented Islamic Sharia law.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's this direct challenge to the former colonial powers.
So he's kind of a kindred spirit.
He is.
You're Amin, right?
They're both these thorns in the side of the West.
Right.
And so Amin sees an opportunity here to solidify this alliance.
Yeah.
Amin actually inflates the size of Uganda's Muslim population.
Okay.
Portraying himself as this devout Muslim leader.
Wow. So he's just completely distorting reality to secure this power.
To secure power and support.
Wow.
Yeah. And Gaddafi buys it.
Yeah.
He provides Amin with weapons.
Yeah.
Welcomes Uganda into the Organization of Islamic States.
Right.
And, this alliance would have significant consequences.
Yeah.
But that's a story
we'll get there
for another time.
All this is so fascinating and disturbing at the same time.
It really is.
It seems like he's spiraling further and further down this dark path.
He is.
And his actions are going to have a devastating impact on Uganda's economy and social fabric for the world.
Absolutely.
Stay tuned for that when we come back.
All right.
Last we left off, Idi Amin had secured power, alienated the West, and basically cozied up to Gaddafi.
Yeah.
His true colors are starting to show.
Mm-hmm.
So what's next in this dictator's playbook?
It's fascinating how his personal life starts to kind of mirror the chaos of his regime.
Yeah.
He's notoriously polygamous.
Right.
At least 6 wives, but potentially over 50 children.
Over 50 children. That's a lot of kids.
It is.
I wouldn't want to organize that family reunion.
But yeah.
But I guess you could say that's pretty classic dictator behavior.
Dictator behavior, indulging in these excesses while the country's crumbling around him.
Yeah, and there were these dark whispers, right?
Yeah.
About some even more disturbing behavior.
There were rumors of cannibalism.
Yeah, cannibalism. Okay, now we're getting really creepy.
Yeah.
Was there any truth to those claims, or was that just it's a muddy area?
It's a muddy area.
Yeah.
Some believe it was propaganda spread by his enemies. Others claim there were credible eyewitness accounts.
Right.
Regardless of the truth.
Yeah.
I think the mere existence of those rumors really speaks volumes about the fear and paranoia surrounding his regime.
Like something out of a horror movie.
It is.
But then you also have this whole bizarre Scottish connection thing, right?
Ah, yes, the Scottish connection.
Mm-hmm.
It almost seems comical.
Yeah.
But it really happened.
Right.
So you have this group.
Yeah.
The Scottish National Liberation Army.
Right.
This kind of fringe group.
Okay.
They reach out to Amin in the mid-1970s, knowing his fondness for Scotland.
I can only imagine what was going through their heads.
Right.
They're like, this guy loves kilts. Maybe he can help us out.
This guy likes Scotland. Maybe he can give us a hand.
Right.
And Amin, ever the showman,
yeah,
expresses sympathy for their cause.
Okay.
Even offers to become the King of Scotland.
A Ugandan dictator ruling Scotland.
It's wild.
That's an alternate history I would love to read.
It really is.
But
it highlights his delusional state of mind.
Yeah.
I mean, here he is presiding over this crumbling nation.
Right.
But he's entertaining these fantasies of ruling a country thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
Some historians even believe he might have been suffering from syphilis-induced dementia.
Oh, wow.
Which could explain some of his erratic behavior.
So that's a whole other layer to this.
It is.
Okay, but these delusions weren't just harmless eccentricities, were they?
No, sadly they weren't.
Right.
His detachment from reality had real-world consequences, and I think one of the most significant examples of that is the Entebbe raid in 1976.
Oh, yeah, the Entebbe raid.
Yeah.
I remember learning about that in school. Hijacked plane hostages, Israeli commandos.
It's straight out of a movie.
Yeah, it's like a Hollywood movie.
It was a high-stakes international incident that really solidified Amin's status as an international pariah.
Okay.
An Air France plane en route from Tel Aviv to Paris is hijacked and diverted to Entebbe Airport in Uganda.
Right.
The hijackers are demanding the release of Palestinian and pro-Palestinian militants.
Yeah.
And they find a willing host in Amin.
So he basically rolls out the red carpet for terrorists.
He does.
Wow.
He welcomes them personally.
Yeah.
Further infuriating the international community.
But Israel's not playing around, right?
Israel's not playing.
Yeah.
They know that negotiations are unlikely to succeed. Yeah. So they take matters into their own hands.
And then comes the raid.
One
of the most daring rescue missions in history.
Yeah, Israeli commandos fly thousands of miles.
Yeah.
Storm Entebbe airport.
Yeah.
Rescue the hostages, kill the hijackers.
Right.
All in a single night.
It's crazy.
It was a humiliating blow to Amin.
Right.
It really exposed the weakness of his regime on a global stage.
You'd think that would be the beginning of his downfall.
You'd think so.
Right. Such a public humiliation.
But Amin was a survivor.
Yeah.
He had built this system of fear and loyalty within the military, eliminating anyone who posed a threat.
Right.
However, the cracks were starting to show.
Okay, so what finally leads to the collapse of his reign?
It's this perfect storm of internal dissent, regional tensions, and Amin's own recklessness.
Okay.
In 1977, he orchestrates the murder of Archbishop Janani Luwum.
Oh, wow.
This prominent religious leader who had dared to criticize his regime.
That's awful. So this is a turning point then?
It's a major turning point.
Okay.
The murder of such a respected figure really galvanized opposition to Amin.
Right.
You have religious groups, human rights organizations, even former allies condemning him.
So he basically united everyone against him.
He did.
With that brutality.
Yeah.
Wow.
And around the same time, tensions with neighboring Tanzania are boiling over. Amin, ever the opportunist, sees a chance to distract from domestic problems and bolster his waning support by instigating a war.
So classic diversion tactic. When things are bad at home, find an enemy abroad.
Right. In late 1978, he launches an invasion of Tanzania.
Okay.
And at first, it seems like he might succeed.
Okay.
But the tide quickly turns.
What happens?
Well, the Tanzanian army, supported by Ugandan exiles who've been waiting for a chance to overthrow Amin, they launch a powerful counteroffensive.
So it's external pressure, internal rebellion.
Yeah, it's this combination that brings him down.
Okay.
The Tanzanian army, with the help of these Ugandan exiles, drive Amin's forces back.
Right.
And they capture Kampala in April 1979.
So that's the end of Idi Amin's reign of terror.
It is.
Wow.
He flees to Libya.
Okay.
Eventually finds refuge in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Where he lives out the rest of his days in exile.
And never faces justice.
Never faces justice.
For any of the atrocities that happened under his rule.
It's astonishing.
It is.
And the human cost of his reign is staggering.
Yeah.
Estimated death toll is anywhere between 300,000 to 800,000 people.
It's almost unimaginable the scale of suffering that he caused.
It is.
So his legacy is...
His legacy is one of economic ruin, social division, and trauma that continues to affect Uganda to this day.
It's a sobering reminder of the devastation that can unfold when power goes unchecked.
Yeah.
But let's shift our focus now to another dictator whose reign, though less internationally infamous, was equally devastating for his people. Mobutu Sese Mobutu of Zaire.
Yeah.
Now, remember when we left off? He'd just orchestrated his first coup and eliminated his rival, Patrice Lumumba.
Right.
So he's kind of a dictator in the making at this point.
He is.
He's got the support of the West.
Yeah.
He's consolidated his power.
He's in a good spot.
And now he's ready to build his dictatorship.
Yeah.
So what happens next? Okay, so Mobutu's eliminated Lumumba. He's got the West on his side. He's pulled off this coup.
Yeah.
He's like a dictator in the making, but how does he transform this power into a lasting regime?
Well, what's interesting is how he kind of shifts, you know, from this overt violence to this more, you could say, insidious form of control.
Right.
He understands that to keep power, you got to create a system that benefits the people loyal to you.
Right. So he starts building this network of patronage.
Exactly.
Reward those who support him and punish those who don't.
Precisely. He forms this group called the B Kinshasa Group.
Okay.
This powerful clique, you know.
Yeah.
They control key government institutions.
Right.
And they basically act as his enforcers.
So they're the muscle.
They are. They systematically purge anyone suspected of Lumumba loyalties.
Yeah.
Ensuring that any remaining opposition is dealt with, you know.
Swiftly and quietly.
Yeah,
it sounds incredibly calculated.
It was. It was a well-oiled machine.
Wow.
And you know, it worked.
Yeah.
This group played a key role in crushing rebellions. Like the Simba Rebellion.
Right, the Simba Rebellion, that one aimed to, like, overthrow Mobutu completely, right?
Yeah, they wanted him out.
It's tragic how these movements fighting against dictators, sometimes they kind of end up mirroring their tactics, right?
It's the sad truth. The Simba Rebellion, while they gained ground initially, were ultimately crippled by internal divisions.
Okay.
This brutality against civilians.
Right, which alienates.
It alienates a lot of their potential supporters.
Right.
Mobutu exploited these weaknesses and, with Western backing, crushed the rebellion.
It's a reminder that even in the fight against tyranny, it's not always so black and white, right?
It's so complicated.
So he's eliminated the armed opposition, but what about political rivals? How does he silence those who might challenge him through, legal means?
That's where Mobutu's cunning really shines. He transitions from this overt violence to a system of, you could say, co-option.
Okay.
He strategically uses money and influence to silence potential opponents.
So he's basically buying their loyalty.
In a way, yeah.
Wow.
He understood that patronage, bribery, were often more effective than brute force in maintaining control.
It's like a more sophisticated carrot and stick, right?
A very sophisticated carrot and stick. By the mid-1960s, he'd neutralized any serious threats to his power.
It's almost scarier, right? These dictators who aren't just brutal.
Oh, absolutely.
But who are master manipulators.
Because it's harder to see coming.
Yeah.
In Mobutu, he was a master manipulator.
Right.
He felt so confident in his control, in fact, that in 1965, he stages his second coup.
Wait, another coup? Why, what was the point?
This one was all about optics.
Okay.
Legitimacy,
Right.
He promised a return to civilian rule within 5 years.
Yeah.
Knowing full well he had no intention of giving up power.
Yeah, it's like saying all the right things, but not actually meaning it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to solidify this facade, he establishes the Popular Movement of the Revolution, or the MPR.
Okay.
It becomes the sole political party.
So one-party state.
One-party state.
Okay.
He was systematically dismantling any semblance of democracy.
Yeah, we see this playbook over and over again.
Over and over. Control the narrative, control the party, control the country.
Control the country. And Mobutu, he was a master of this game.
Yeah.
He goes a step further.
He launches what he calls the Authenticity Campaign.
Right. This is where he renames the country Zaire, right?
This is it.
Changes the flag, the anthem, bans Western names and clothing.
The whole 9 yards.
It's a whole cultural overhaul.
It's a complete cultural overhaul. And in 1971, Congo officially becomes Zaire.
Yeah.
It's all part of his grand plan to create this cult of personality.
Okay.
He wanted to be seen as this father of a new, authentically African nation, shedding those remnants of colonialism.
So it was less about, like, genuine cultural revival and more about solidifying his own
about power,
image and control.
Absolutely. The Authenticity Campaign, it was brilliant propaganda.
Right.
It allowed him to control the narrative, paint his opponents as Western puppets.
Yeah.
And then he presents himself as the savior of Zaire.
It's amazing how these guys can, like, spin things,
Masters of spin. He even went so far as to compare himself to the Messiah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so his ego is getting pretty big at this point.
Out of control.
But it seems like it's working, right? He's in power for decades.
He is. He's got this formula down. Beneath the surface, Zaire is crumbling.
Right.
It's under the weight of his corruption, his economic mismanagement.
Okay.
This is where his policy of Zaireanization comes in.
Right.
And this is a policy that ultimately devastates the country's economy.
So Zaireanization, this was his plan to basically transfer all foreign-owned businesses to Zairean ownership. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, on the surface, it sounds kind of like a good idea.
Yeah, you'd think so.
Promote local control, all that.
In theory, yeah.
But in reality, not so much.
No, it was a disaster. These businesses were handed over to Mobutu's cronies, family members. Most of them, they had no idea how to run them.
Right.
It became a free-for-all.
So it was less about economic empowerment and more about just enriching those.
Exactly. They plundered these businesses, pocketed the profits, ran them into the ground.
And Mobutu himself, I mean, he's living large at this point, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He amasses this personal fortune estimated in the billions.
Wow.
Palaces, luxury cars, properties all over the world.
It's crazy, isn't it? Like, how can these guys
mind-boggling.
Live in such extravagant luxury while their people are suffering?
It's a tragic pattern.
It is. And in Zaire, the consequences were devastating.
Devastating. The economy collapses, hyperinflation cripples the country.
Yeah.
Basic services are decimated.
So while Mobutu's, sipping champagne in Paris, his people are struggling to survive. It's infuriating.
And what's really frustrating is that he was able to keep this system going for so long because he kept his Western backers happy.
Right. Because he was anti-communist.
As long as he was anti-communist, they turned a blind eye.
So it's a reminder that these geopolitical interests, sometimes they override basic human decency, right?
Absolutely. But Mobutu's luck, it couldn't last forever.
Right.
By the 1980s, the Cold War is winding down.
Right.
And the West's tolerance for his excesses is wearing thin.
So the winds of change are blowing.
They are.
What finally brings an end to Mobutu's reign?
Well, it's a combination of things. You have this growing pro-democracy movement within Zaire.
Okay.
It's fueled by the economic crisis.
Right.
Mobutu's blatant corruption.
So the people have had enough.
They've had enough. And then you have the Rwandan genocide in 1994.
Okay.
Horrific event.
Yeah.
And that ultimately seals Mobutu's fate.
Okay. How so?
He makes this disastrous decision to shelter the Hutu perpetrators of the genocide in eastern Zaire.
Right.
This alienates his Western allies.
Right, because now they have to...
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're facing international pressure to address this humanitarian crisis.
So, major miscalculation on Mobutu's part.
Huge miscalculation. It paints him as a supporter of genocide.
Yeah.
And it further tarnishes his image on the world stage.
It seems like the walls are closing in on him.
The walls are closing in. In 1996... a rebel coalition led by Laurent Desire Kabila, backed by Rwanda and Uganda, they launch an offensive to oust Mobutu.
This is the first Congo War.
This is it, the beginning of the end for Mobutu.
Yeah.
His army, weakened by corruption, low morale, no match for these determined rebels.
It sounds like his regime was built on a foundation of sand.
It was.
And it was finally collapsing.
It all came crashing down.
Yeah.
In May 1997, Mobutu flees Zaire, ending his 32-year dictatorship.
32 years.
He dies just a few months later, in exile in Morocco.
It's incredible, isn't it, how these two men, Amin and Mobutu,
it's a wild sequence,
rose to power, and they clung to it for so long.
They did.
Despite all the suffering they caused.
Their stories really are a testament to their cunning, their ruthlessness, their ability to really exploit the political landscape of the Cold War.
Yeah.
But I think they also serve as this stark reminder of the human cost of unchecked power.
Right.
The economic devastation, the social divisions, the brutality. It's a legacy that continues to haunt these nations today.
It's a heavy and complex history, but I think it's one we need to learn from, right?
Absolutely.
The importance of strong institutions, accountability, and just being vigilant against those who would exploit power for their own gain.
I completely agree. The stories of Amin and Mobutu, they're cautionary tales.
They are.
They remind us that the fight for democracy, justice, human rights, it's an ongoing struggle. It requires constant effort.
Well said.
Right.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. It's been quite a journey.
It has.
Some dark chapters in African history, but hopefully it sheds some light on the complexities of power, corruption.
I think so.
And really the enduring resilience of the human spirit.
It's been a pleasure diving into this with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to our listeners, we encourage you to keep exploring these stories, to delve deeper into the history, and to never forget the lessons that we can learn from the past.
Absolutely.